The story of Cain and Abel is not just the first murder, it's a mirror reflecting the envy that lurks in every human heart. Long before empires or armies, the first war was fought within a single soul. Cain and Abel, pioneers outside Eden, faced a choice: to master envy or be mastered by it. Their struggle is ours: envy, comparison, and the silent battles we fight within. As we revisit this ancient scene, we're invited to confront the seeds of envy in ourselves and the choices that define us. In the world's first family, envy was born, not with a shout, but a whisper. Cain's disappointment twisted into bitterness as he saw Abel's success as his own failure. Envy convinces us that another's blessing is our curse, turning gratitude into resentment. Before violence, there was surrender to a toxic emotion that corrupted Cain's spirit. The story warns us, envy grows quietly, but its consequences are devastating. To understand Cain is to examine our own hearts and the choices we make when envy knocks. Cain the farmer and Abel the shepherd. Two brothers, two paths. Cain wrestled with the earth, measuring success in harvests. Abel guided his flock, finding meaning and care. Their work shaped their hearts, but neither was better in God's eyes. They lived side by side, fulfilling their roles, unaware that their differences would soon test their spirits. The story isn't about rivalry, but about the spirit behind our actions. What matters is not what we do, but the heart with which we do it. Their daily lives set the stage for a test of character, not profession. When the time came to offer gifts to God, Cain brought some of his crops. Abel, the best of his flock. God favored Abel's offering not for what it was, but for the heart behind it. Abel gave with gratitude and faith. Cain, perhaps out of duty. God's response wasn't about farming or shepherding, it was about sincerity. The fire of acceptance revealed the true posture of each brother's soul. Worship is more than ritual, it's the intention that matters. Cain's rejection was a call to self-reflection, not condemnation. Before tragedy, God offered Cain a chance to change. Cain's anger burned as he saw Abel's favor and felt only rejection. Instead of seeking understanding, he let resentment fester. Envy blinded him, turning his brother's blessing into a personal wound. Isolated and bitter, Cain stood at a crossroads: humility or hatred. He chose silence and blame, letting darkness grow within. The tragedy began not with violence but with a heart surrendered to envy. In the shadow of rejection, the seeds of tragedy took root. Cain's anger redefined his world. Every moment of Abel's peace was filtered through Cain's resentment. Disappointment curdled into jealousy. Cain compared himself to Abel, seeing himself as losing. The jealousy was silent, making it more dangerous. It convinced him his pain was Abel's fault. Cain saw Abel as the embodiment of his failure. Jealousy reduces people into symbols of what we resent. It strips away brotherhood, replacing it with division. Cain watched Abel with suspicion. This jealousy was turning toxic, preparing his heart for darkness. As the days turned into weeks, Cain's jealousy deepened, casting a long and oppressive shadow over his existence. This was no longer a matter of a single rejected gift. It had become an obsession that colored every sunrise and sunset. He would watch Abel from a distance, the shepherd moving with a grace and peace that seemed to taunt Cain's inner turmoil. Abel's very presence became a constant, throbbing reminder of his own spiritual discontent. The shadow he was living under was not cast by his brother's success, but by his own refusal to step into the light of self-examination and humility. He chose to nurture the darkness, allowing it to grow until it eclipsed any memory of brotherly love. The tragedy of this period was Cain's profound isolation. Instead of seeking counsel, he chose to bury his pain deep within himself. He could have spoken to God, asking for clarity and wisdom. He could have opened his heart to his brother, sharing his hurt and confusion, but pride and resentment built a wall around him, cutting him off from the very relationships that could have offered healing. He chose the lonely path of bitterness, believing his anger was justified. This decision to suffer in silence, to let the wound fester without the healing balm of communication, was a critical error. Unspoken pain does not disappear. It metastasizes, transforming into something far more monstrous and destructive. In this self-imposed exile of the heart, the seed of envy, planted in the soil of rejection, began to sprout thorny vines. These vines were his resentful thoughts, which wrapped themselves around his spirit, choking out any remaining compassion or reason. He was no longer just angry at the situation, he was becoming angry at the person. His internal logic, twisted by jealousy, began to formulate a terrible conclusion. If Abel was the source of his pain, then the removal of Abel would be the solution to his pain. This is the ultimate deception of envy. It promises peace through the elimination of the object of our resentment, failing to reveal that the true source of torment lies within. Cain's heart was now a battleground. It was a place where love for his brother fought a losing war against the encroaching forces of jealousy and hatred. Every fond memory, every shared moment from their childhood, was being systematically erased and replaced by the singular burning image of Abel's accepted offering. He was losing the ability to see his brother as a person, a human being with his own life, his own hopes, and his own connection to God. Abel was becoming a symbol, a problem to be solved. Cain was standing on the precipice, allowing the silent toxicity of his jealousy to push him ever closer to an irrevocable act of violence. The unspoken war was nearing its tragic climax. The internal battle raging within Cain was a silent yet violent storm. On the surface, life may have appeared to continue as normal. He still tilled the ground, the sun still rose, and the seasons still turned. But beneath this veneer of routine, a fundamental transformation was occurring. The jealousy he harbored was no longer just an emotion he felt, it was becoming the lens through which he saw everything. It poisoned his perception of God, whom he now saw as unfair and arbitrary. It poisoned his perception of himself, solidifying his identity as a victim. And most terribly, it poisoned his perception of his brother, morphing him from family into a foe. This internal war was rewriting the entire script of his life. He was caught in a dangerous feedback loop. The more he focused on his resentment, the more reasons he found to justify it. He likely started to notice small things, interpreting them in the worst possible light. A simple cheerful greeting from Abel could have been twisted into a condescending sneer. The healthy state of Abel's flock could have been seen not as a result of diligent care, but as an undeserved gift designed to spite him. This is how envy works. It is a confirmation bias for bitterness. It actively seeks out evidence to support its own toxic narrative, ignoring all information to the contrary. Cain was no longer seeing the world as it was, but as his jealousy demanded it to be. This unspoken war was all-consuming, draining him of the spiritual and emotional energy needed for anything positive. The effort required to maintain such a high level of bitterness is immense. It leaves no room for gratitude, no space for joy, and no capacity for love. Cain's work in the fields likely became joyless toil, performed not with a sense of purpose but with a heavy, resentful heart. He was physically present in his life, but his spirit was absent, wholly preoccupied with the internal conflict. He was becoming a ghost in his own story, haunted by the specter of his brother's perceived success and his own festering wound of rejection. Ultimately, this internal battle represents the moment where temptation solidifies into intent. The initial flash of anger and disappointment was a natural human reaction, but the choice to cultivate that anger, to feed it with comparison and isolate it with silence, is what allowed it to become toxic. Cain was losing the war within not because he was powerless, but because he stopped fighting for the right side. He surrendered the territory of his heart to the invading force of envy. He stopped seeing it as a destructive intruder and began to embrace it as a justified companion. This fatal alliance, forged in the silence of his own soul, set the stage for the final tragic act. As Cain's resentment peaked, a voice broke through his turmoil. It was God, reaching out with love. Seeing the darkness in Cain's soul, he intervened, offering a lifeline. "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast?" An invitation to voice his bitterness. God wasn't seeking information but offering a chance for honesty and healing. This reveals God's character. He pursues us, calling us out of our pain. He invites us to explore the roots of our feelings, showing intimate care. But Cain met this with silence. He refused help, choosing darkness. God warned Cain, giving him a vivid image of the danger he was in. "If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Sin is a predator, an active, hungry force crouching at the door of Cain's heart. God commanded, "You must rule over it," affirming Cain's strength and responsibility. We all have sin crouching at the door of our hearts, but we are not destined to be its prey. God has given us the capacity to turn away from the darkness and walk in the light. The divine warning faded. Cain turned his face toward his brother. The scripture tells us Cain said to Abel, "Let's go out to the field." It was a calculated invitation, masking a murderous intent. He lured Abel away to a place of isolation. Unaware of the predator, Abel walked beside his brother. While in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Brother rose against brother. A line had been crossed, and the ground became the first witness to humanity's darkness. The deed was done. Cain stood alone. The silence was not peace but absence, just the wind and the finality of his actions. Abel's blood cried out from the earth. Injustice cannot remain quiet. It was a plea for justice that rose to the heavens, a cry God could not ignore. It is the first act of persecution. Abel became the first martyr. It was the brutal introduction of death. It leads to destruction, emptiness, and a cry for justice. After the silence, God asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" God knew the answer, but this question was for Cain's soul, an opportunity to confess. Cain retorted, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" A chilling cocktail of lies and denial. He was denying his role as a fellow human being. This phrase has haunted humanity ever since. "What have you done?" God demanded. "Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." The time for consequences had arrived. The judgment that fell upon Cain was directly tied to his crime. God declared, "Now you are under a curse." The consequence was a life of exile. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. God showed a startling act of mercy. The Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. This act of mercy is one of the most profound and puzzling parts of the story. It reveals a God whose justice is always tempered with grace. The story of Cain echoes through time, reflected in our own hearts. It's tempting to see Cain as a monster, but his story is a mirror to humanity, revealing our capacity for darkness. The seed of envy that took root in Cain's heart can grow in our souls too. Cain's tragedy was not his anger but his refusal to address it. We must see ourselves in Cain's initial struggle, recognizing his emotions as our own. Cain's story warns us that the most dangerous battles are with the darkness within. The most hopeful part of Cain's story is also the part he ignored. God's warning, "Sin is crouching at your door, but you must rule over it," was not just for him. It is a timeless promise and a command for every generation. The beast of envy, jealousy, and resentment is still crouching at the doors of our hearts today. It desires to have us. It wants to consume our peace, destroy our relationships, and poison our perspective. It whispers the same old lies, that another's success diminishes you, that their blessing is your curse, that your bitterness is justified and your only true companion. The beast has not changed its nature or its tactics, but God's declaration has not changed either. You must rule over it. This is a radical statement of empowerment. We are not helpless victims of our feelings. We are not destined to be devoured by our jealousy. We have been given the authority and the capacity to say no. Ruling over sin means making a conscious choice. It means choosing gratitude when comparison feels more natural. It means choosing to celebrate another's victory, even when it stings. It means choosing to bring our hurt and anger to God in honest prayer rather than letting it fester in bitter silence. It means choosing to be our brother's keeper, not his rival. This divine invitation to rule over sin is still extended to us today. God still sees our downcast faces and our angry hearts. He still breaks into our silent turmoil with the same loving question, "Why are you angry?" He still offers us a path to acceptance if we choose to do what is right. The story of Cain is not just a tragedy to be mourned, it is a lesson to be learned and a choice to be made. It sets two paths before us. Cain's path of letting the beast in, or the path of ruling over it, the path Abel unknowingly walked, a path of faithful, generous-hearted worship. Ultimately, Cain's story is a profound call to vigilance. We must be watchful of the thoughts we entertain and the feelings we nurture. We must guard the door of our hearts with diligence because the crouching beast is persistent. But we do not stand guard alone. The same God who warned Cain is with us, offering us the grace and strength to be victorious. Cain's story shows us the devastating cost of losing the battle. But it also, by implication, shows us the peace, freedom, and life that come from winning it. The choice to rule is ours to make every single day. The story of Cain and Abel is a spiritual roadmap. It charts a destructive journey but also illuminates a path paved with humility and self-examination. The story forces us to confront the Cains within our own hearts. The antidote is surrender and forgiveness. Abel's faith still speaks, urging us to choose the better way. This is the freedom found in choosing community over competition, love over envy. Let it be a catalyst for profound spiritual growth. If this story exposed something in your heart, don't run, surrender it to God. Like this video, subscribe to Kingdom Keys Seekers for more eye-opening Bible storytelling.